Next hour we will see her film, and after that we will hear Professor Childress. I will play it for you.
Welcome to the evidence-based solution for the family dynamic known as parental alienation. I'm Dorcy Pruter, the CEO and founder of the Consious Co-Parenting Institute, and we are focused on solutions for the global epidemic commonly known as parental alienation. And I really want to share with you the skills and tools needed to really understand that it is time to end the suffering for children and parents once and for all. And as Dr. Childress frequently says, it's always in the child's best interest to fix things sooner rather than later. So another ASAP. So I'm going to share with you today solutions that I shared with mental health professionals and legal for the family dynamic known. Welcome to the evidence-based solution for the family dynamic known as parental alienation. I'm Dorcy Pruter, the CEO and founder of the Consious Co-Parenting Institute, and we are focused on solutions for the global epidemic commonly known as parental alienation. And I really want to share with you the skills and tools needed to really understand that it is time to end the suffering for children and parents once and for all. And as Dr. Childress frequently says, it's always in the child's best interest to fix things sooner rather than later. So in other words, if there's a breach in a relationship between a child and a parent, it needs to be repaired ASAP. So I'm going to share with you today solutions that I shared with mental health professionals and legal professionals for the past several years. Dr. Childress and I spoke at the AFCC conference in 2017 and the American Psychological Association conference in 2019. Because most mental health professionals and legal professionals don't know what they are looking at when they're reviewing evidence, and they don't know what to do about this phenomenon known as parental alienation, they believe that there is rarely enough accurate information to make an informed opinion. Most bystanders, as well as trained professionals, eventually give up trying to figure out which parent is a pathogenic parent in the family, so they spend a lot of time trying to figure out who is right and who is wrong. They get in the he said, she said, back and forth dynamic that you frequently see in family court. In this seminar, I'm really going to share the framework for preventions and solutions, including proper assessment protocols that lead to solving the whole family problem with a whole family solution. So while I'm not a mental health professional and I'm not going to be teaching assessment and diagnosis, that's Dr. Childress's realm, I'm going to talk about the framework of that, how that really is the pathway to the solutions that we offer here at Consious Co-Parenting Institute. So in families where one or both parents are pathogenic, or one or both parents may be guilty of allowing their anger towards the other parent to be expressed in a way that is tragically involving their children, I want to talk about the solutions for that. So let this be the end of parental alienation as we once knew it. It's time to put the old paradigm to rest. Parental alienation is the term that's been used to describe the attempts by one parent to undermine the relationship a child has with the other parent. Because children are suggestible, many will eventually succumb to the relentless pressure by a pathogenic parent towards a targeted parent to have to choose, even in the subtlest ways, or not direct pressure one parent over the other. So when a child aligns with a pathogenic parent and becomes a representative of that parent's agenda by also behaving in aggressive and hateful ways towards their normal range targeted parent, the child experiences an emotional cutoff from that parent, and often that spills over to the extended family and friends. And this has a profound negative impact on the child's emotional and psychological development. So it's really important to identify what the actual problem is. Instead of focusing on the term, we have to focus on the actual problem. What is happening is an emotional cutoff between a child and one normal range parent due to the pathogenic parenting practices of one parent causing psychological abuse to the child by neglecting them of a relationship with the other parent. And one of the greatest tragedies that we see in this family dynamic is many targeted parents start to view their children as an alienator as well, because they buy into the narrative that the child is independently creating their own scenarios of how horrible the targeted parent is to be accepted by the alienating behavior. So these imagined scenarios are often twisted and distorted versions of things that have happened, and some things that are completely made up and bear little resemblance to the truth. So I wanted to participate and share with you today the knowledge that I've gained firsthand working as a practitioner with these high conflict families, and to provide a more in-depth understanding of this very serious issue, in particular by offering insight into the solutions for this global epidemic known as parental alienation. Again, this is really just a form of a really horrible form of child psychological abuse. So I don't have a lot of time to go into the in-depth of everything that we do. However, I want to give you some insight into why what we do works and what we do that is different than what most other people in the space are doing, and how we are really focused on the family system from prevention to reintegration in families who are really experiencing a full emotional cutoff with their children. So I prefer to call the parent, instead of a targeted parent, the chosen parent. And here's why. The parent that I consider the chosen parent is the parent the child chooses to really lead their family out of this family dynamic. They know that this is the parent who will often do the work to recover the family. They maybe know this unconsciously, but this is the parent that will go to the end of the world to figure out what is happening and what to do about it. And I really want to be careful here when I say this to professionals in this community, and here's why. Many professionals blame the chosen targeted parent and have expectations on that parent to solve things when the professionals themselves have no idea what to do. And so they continue to destabilize the family and keep everyone stuck in the problem or what they think is the problem. So they focus on issues that aren't real issues, and the family spins and spins. And this does not serve anyone in the family, including the pathogenic parent. Dr. Childress shares a lot about the assessment and diagnosis, and that it's the mental health professional's responsibility to properly assess and diagnose. And if you're a mental health professional and you're not doing that, then you may very well be harming families. And I don't think mental health professionals get into the industry to harm people. I think a lot of them get into this area of practice really seeking help for themselves unconsciously, and without the proper skills, you're actually causing more harm. And while I won't be able to give you everything today, and I won't really be going through assessment and diagnosis, I do want to share with you the importance of the solution that everyone should speak in a unified voice. And the old paradigm of parental alienation using Richard Gardner's framework is dead, and we should no longer be using this in a professional setting. One of the ways you do this is by putting a moratorium on the past. So if you learn nothing else from me today, stop rehashing in therapy the unforgivable events and the issues that will never be solved because they are most likely delusions. And we have to free the child from having the abusive parent continue to abuse the other parent in therapy, your therapy sessions, by placing a hold on the past, so creating a ceasefire. So when parents divorce, often both parents struggle with their parenting foundation, really as they are rocked by the trauma of the marital relationship ending. Normal range parents find their footing fairly quickly. Pathogenic parents struggle and frequently remain unstable. Pathogenic parents get triggered by many different things and frequently use that as an opportunity to alienate. And pathogenic parents can easily be triggered into their unresolved childhood traumas that manifest into projections into their current family system. So if it goes unresolved, it will escalate into a full-blown emotional cutoff between a child and a normal range stable parent. When this happens, the child will need to be protected from the psychological abuse of the pathogenic parent. And I don't want to spend, again, a lot of time here. I just want to frame up the understanding of the basis of what is happening in the family that's causing the problem. With this basic understanding, we can build a successful solution. And there's obviously a lot more to how you get to the solution. And hopefully Dr. Childress will cover that, or I know he covers that in assessment and diagnosis. So let's get started in the solution. Some of my slides have been adapted from presentations Dr. Childress and I have done in the past, and the information is still relevant today. I thank Dr. Childress for putting those slides together for me, especially the graphics demonstrating what is happening for visual effect. So in early prevention as professionals, it's important to establish a foundation of cooperation from both parents. Testing cooperation is easy when you know the end result is to create a space for the child to be in relationship with both parents. So at the foundation of all family relationships is the understanding that a child loves and wants to be loved by both parents. Cooperation from both parents makes complete, perfect sense. So early education is critical, and one of the ways that we've solved this at Conscious Co-Parenting Institute is to provide early intervention, divorce classes, and coaching co-parenting classes, mediation, and a collaborative approach. The focus on early education is about on divorce abuse prevention. So parents learn that their behaviors and choices will determine how their child will ultimately adjust to the divorce. Parents learn that the classes are designed to educate parents about children's issues in divorce, and they including the need to value their co-parent and to understand the importance of communication between both homes. And parents learn that their behavior and choices will really determine how their child will ultimately adjust to the divorce. And the classes are really designed to educate parents about children's issues, and the classes are suited for parents and guardians who filed for divorce. So it's used for court-mandated seminars focusing on children's issues and family separation. And it's important to remember that the framework is simple, and education, when we educate parents on what it actually means to have a child-centered divorce versus a child-in-the-middle divorce. And this means educating parents early on. Again, the framework is simple. And we have many simple classes, everything from higher purpose parenting, reunited for parents with adult children. We have custody solution courses and a couple of different online parenting courses. So prevention is key, and having simple and easy to follow strategies is really critically important to use in your practice. Child-centered is meeting the needs of the child and not the parents. So pathognic parents can be crafty in hiding what they are doing by showing up in therapy, making statements like, I want the child to have a relationship with the other parent, and it's up to the other parent, and then leaving the other parent and the professionals trying to figure out what has happened. So being preventative in the beginning and have the parent's role model can quickly detect who is causing the problem and teach the skills to prevent the escalation of the pathology. Remember, it's never just one person, it's a whole family. So if you're working with one parent who is being pathognic, remember this is an adult child who has not processed their childhood trauma, and they will need early intervention and treatment so their pathology does not escalate. All of this is done with empathy for the entire family unit. They are the client. If you isolate members of the family will split, and it's easy to ally with your client and miss the signs of the pathology. So in child-centered divorce skills, we have to explain how conflict and trauma harms children. You have to help parents create a conflict resolution strategic plan when conflicts happen, and you have to educate parents on how divorce impacts children. And then it's really important to understand and educate parents in that micro trauma can become a macro trauma if not handled properly. So we have to educate parents on working on their own upset emotions and unresolved trauma from their childhood that is being triggered by the separation and divorce. And we do this by teaching parents how to disengage from conflict and how to re-engage with empathy with offers and solutions. Empathy, empathy, empathy. Check yourself before you wreck yourself and your children. We have to help parents identify their emotions, and that emotions are contagious. So we want to help them pick the good ones. Educating parents on how to shift from being an intact to a separated family, but a family is always a family. So it's the child that bonds the family together, not the marriage. We have to assist parents to shift the role from spouse to co-parents and how to do this in a healthy way. Family is family, and it's about integration, not elimination, period. And we want to help parents redefine their relationship as parents as a business contract of co-parenting and help them create a plan that supports the child to have a relationship with both parents. And this can also be done with high conflict parents. So don't think this is impossible if the parents are high conflict. We use these skills and teach these skills and eliminate or drastically reduce conflict in families. So one of the most important things is to develop healthy communication skills. We want to teach parents how to check their communication styles, check using iMessages, using active listening. We want to help parents identify what the problem is and whose it is to solve. That's really critically important. We want to teach parents how to negotiate versus demand. And they can say something like, what is your proposal? Versus getting engaged in the back and forth, he said, she said, entanglement. So we want to teach children how to role model for their child or children. And then we want to teach them how to create a co-parenting relationship plan that realigns co-parents consciously, minimizes negative influences, use a business relationship model, clarifying boundaries in a healthy way, and be dedicated to a healthy future. When we do this, children love both parents, even abusive parents. And I know this may seem like a controversial statement, but it's absolutely true. And I'm here today because of this family dynamic, which is child psychological abuse. And when this is happening, the child is allied with the psychologically abusive parent. So it proves this out time and time again. And if you think this is not true, you're 100% mistaken. And this mistaken belief could be preventing you from recovering families and may actually be harming families. Children love both parents. Period. They may not love behavior, but they love their parents. So we have to teach children and parents that two teachers are better than one, and focusing on the parents' positive qualities, focusing on what they want and not what they don't want. And we have to educate parents on how to shift from an intact to a separated divorced family dynamic. Again, it's the child that bonds the family together, not the marriage. And once a family, always a family. And children love and want to be loved by both parents. So in cases of high conflict co-parenting and child abuse, protective separations may be necessary. Unfortunately, many parents do not learn the early prevention skills. So in these severe cases of abuse, we have to protect the child. We protect all abused children all of the time. When the parents don't learn the early prevention skills, things can escalate. So mild conflict can become severe. And children need to be protected from abusive parents. And abusive parents should receive the proper help. Again, this is not about elimination, it's about integration. And judges are not quick to order protective separation in child psychological abuse cases. However, because most professionals are unaware of what's happening, many mental health professionals ally with one parent, usually through the voice of the child, through colluding with the abusive parent. And this causes psychological harm to the children, which has lifelong devastating consequences to the children in all areas of their life. So I want to talk a little bit about some legal strategy, and then I'm going to talk about the Highroad, the framework of that, and then our program custody resolution method and how that is also a solution. So Dr. Childress wrote a really great booklet called the ABAB Single Case Design, How to Use the Highroad as a assessment and or remedy for the family dynamic known as parental alienation. And one of these approaches is the using this research methodology, which has an established history in the professional community. And it's an ABA, so a single case design, and it's been used for autism education and intervention, but the process is pretty simple. So an ABA as a remedy is a design that the first period creates the baseline for the research. So the baseline period is where the family is now. So A is there's an emotional cutoff between a normal range parent and a child. And then B would be treatment implementation. So this, if we are using the Highroad, this could be a 90-day no contact or protective separation in the Highroad. This could be a 9-month protective separation and family systems therapy. And the protective separation is from the pathogenic parent, the parent causing the problem. And then A is the removal of the treatment and the return to the baseline. So the return to the reintroduction of the parent that was causing the problem. And in cases of severe alienation or child psychological abuse, this design can be used to determine the pathogenic parent's effect on the child. And so in this diagram, this gives you an example. The baseline period, the symptoms are present in A. During the relationship repair and protective separation, the symptoms go down. The reintroduction of the pathogenic parent and the symptoms go back up. And so the daily ratings are made for the child's behavior in the initial treatment. So it starts pre-treatment, initial treatment, and then during the second baseline period. In the Highroad, we use what's called the Parent-Child Relationship Rating Scale that was created by Dr. Childress in 2015 for Highroad. And this document is amazing. We use this both in the beginning, during the Highroad, we monitor, and then maintenance care in the post-maintenance care, post-workshop maintenance care, therapist and the now custodial parents use this. And you can see it's simple. Child attitude from hostile to pleasant, child cooperation, behavioral defiance to cooperation, child sociability withdrawn to social. And we don't expect perfection, just something 4 and above on a continuous basis. And then we also are looking at the parenting style. Chosen parents come into the workshop either very permissive or very structured, authoritarian, and we're looking for a blend of the behaviors in appropriate situations. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little while. So again, the ABA, if the reintroduction to the parent and the second A and the symptoms don't resurface, then we've solved it in an ABA. But if the symptoms in the child resurface, then we go to the ABA-B reversal design. So during the last A period, the participant is monitored for changes based on the presence of the absence of treatment. And even stronger form is the ABAB, which involves the second phase. And this happens when there are cases of alienation where they've been re-exposed to the pathogenic parent and prematurely, and the symptoms return. So what we want is for the child's symptomology to be gone. And sometimes re-exposure to the pathogenic parent too soon, or the influences of the pathogenic parent, the symptomology returns. And so we have to go to a longer or a second protective separation, which gives us the ABAB single case design. We go through, we teach this in the custody resolution method as a legal strategy for lawyers, and we teach them how to use this model in really getting an effective court order. So an ABAB reversal design for parental alienation represents scientifically grounded evidence-based practice for both the diagnosis and the treatment of parental alienation or child psychological abuse, and the single case designs are recognized scientific designs, and the reversal design is one of the best single case designs to identify the causality of the problem. So again, if the reintroduction of the parenting practices of the pathogenic parent in the second A, the pathology doesn't resurface in the child, then we've solved it. If it resurfaces, we need a longer protective separation, and we know for a fact that it's the parenting practices of the pathogenic parent, so that can be used as an assessment. So if you're in an area where mental health providers aren't properly assessing and diagnosing, and you need a legal strategy, this can be used for that. So every form of child pathology will evidence a specific and distinctive pattern of symptoms. The transgenerational transmission of pathological mourning from the allied narcissistic borderline parent is a cross-generational coalition with the child against the other parent. And there is no exception to this. Dr. Childress talks about this. He cites this from Bowlby, Mnuchin, Kernberg, Beck, Haley, all of the kahunas, as Dr. Childress says, all of the greats know that this is true. And a treatment-focused clinical assessment of the pathogenic parenting associated with the transgenerational transmission of this disorder mourning should be assessed and documented for the presence or absence of the diagnostic indicators. And I want to talk about the diagnostic indicator checklist. This simple and brilliant checklist created by Dr. Childress really determines the foundation of what is going on in the family. And you can click on, or you can go to this link and download a copy of it. This diagnostic indicator checklist is one that we use in our custody resolution method, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. But this helps you, instead of chasing the ever elusive pathogenic parent down the rabbit hole, which is like trying to hold water in your hands, we actually look at the child's symptoms. And if you can simply go through the checklist. If the child's symptoms are present, then the question is, who's causing it? Is it mom, dad, or both? And then for mental health professionals, what's the solution? So if the pathology is present, and as Dr. Childress says, the diagnostic symptoms are all each individually impossible symptoms in all of psychology. So if one or more of these symptoms are present, then we know that there's a problem, and the problem needs to be addressed sooner rather than later. And Dr. Childress has a ton of information on his website. I highly recommend going and looking at his website. But I briefly want to go through the diagnostic indicator checklist here because we use this in our work, and you should be using it in your work too. And he probably will talk about it in his seminar. But let's just talk about briefly the diagnostic symptoms. The first is an attachment system suppression of the child's attachment bonding motivation towards the targeted parent. A normal range parent. Is the child emotionally cut off from the parent? And then diagnostic 2A, personality disorder features. Does the child have grandiosity? Do they display this towards the family? Do they feel inappropriately elevated in the family hierarchy? Are they targeting this towards their targeted parent? Do they have an absence of empathy for the emotional pain that that's being inflicted on their parent? Do they feel entitled or feel over-empowered, a sense of entitlement over this parent? Are they haughty and arrogant towards the parent? And is there splitting? The child has extreme polarized views. Mom is all good and dad is all bad, right? Or dad is all good and mom is all bad. And then the second variant is the parental anxiety, phobic anxiety. The symptom is that the child has a phobic anxiety of their parent, and it's this persistent, unwarranted fear. And the child is like terrified, in the anticipation of being with the parent. This severe anxiety response in the presence of the targeted parent, or they avoid the parent and avoid any kind of distress. And are you feeding that as a mental health provider? And then the delusional belief, this fixed and false belief regarding the inadequacies of the targeted parent and the parent that the child accuses of being abusive. And then Dr. Childress added his associated clinical signs, and I believe this will be talked about, the research paper that's coming out that reinforces how these associated clinical signs are demonstrated in the different levels of pathology, from lack of empathy and splitting and narcissistic borderline pathology and even dark triad and antisocial personalities. But we see these commonly, and I'm going to talk about this in a second. But this is the first data set that we look at in the custody resolution method. And the custody resolution method is a software for service wraparound coaching program and educational program for families stuck in the family court system. But these associated clinical signs are pretty easy to see. We see on average 7 to 9 of these in every case that we tag data for. So use of the word force, or enhancing the child's empowerment to reject the other parent, or the exclusionary demand that parent can't go to their softball or baseball games. The parental replacement, we see this when there's a new girlfriend or boyfriend or spouse. The unforgivable event that you just can't get past in therapy because the child won't forgive the parent for, this event that's happened, or worst case, hasn't happened and now it's in a delusion. And then we see a lot of mental health providers reinforce the delusion by making the parent apologize for something they didn't do. Then the child says, see, I knew they did it, they've been lying, and now we've reinforced a delusion. We're creating psychopathology in children by reinforcing delusions in them. Associated clinical sign 6, the parent is a fake and a liar. They don't really love them. So it's a coping strategy. Associated sign 7, the themes of rejection. We see everything from, the parent is too controlling, they can't manage their anger, they don't take responsibility and apologize, they have a new relationship and neglect the child, they have a vague personhood of the parent, they have the unforgivable grudge. We hear them use the unwarranted use of the word abuse. They have excessive texting, calling, phone calls, emails from the other parent, the allied parent, with the child on the targeted parent's parenting time. The role reversal, use of the child. So it's not me, it's the child who doesn't want to spend time. I want them to have a relationship. They're sneaky like that. Targeted parent deserves to be rejected. There's a whole host of reasons why that is projected out in therapy. And then the allied parent disregards court orders and court's authority. So we see this almost every single time. So while I won't be able to go deeply into why this is a changed paradigm, it does require parental alienation and the old paradigm of Richard Gardner's framework to be dead and should no longer be used in a professional setting. The term is an urban term, and the proper term is child psychological abuse or cross-generational coalition or transgenerational trauma. And we need to be using the proper terminology. There is absolutely no excuse to not be using the proper terminology. Dr. Childress has provided a tremendous body of work for mental health professionals, legal professionals, and really everyone working in this space to move away from the language of parental alienation. I included it in my slide presentation because it's the language, the urban language that you know. But in our professional setting, we don't use the terminology parental alienation anymore. It is not a diagnosable pathology. So now I framed up some of the stuff that we use, the foundational work we use from Dr. Childress. I want to talk a little bit about the Highroad to Reunification as a catalytic psychoeducational intervention. And the Highroad is a 4-day workshop that is used at the onset of a protective separation to reset the family and to teach the left behind parent, the chosen targeted parent, and the children the skills they need to transition to a healthy family dynamic. The post-workshop no contact period is for the mastery of the skills and the family to work with the trained mental health professionals, so the maintenance care provider. There's a very simple framework. Repair the parent-child relationship first. So if there's child abuse, any kind of child abuse, we must first protect the child, period. Then we educate the child and chosen parent to restore the bond. The bond is never broken. It's just below the surface for safekeeping. We rehabilitate the abusive parent. During the protective separation, we teach the parent skills needed to keep the child out of the middle. So during the Highroad or therapy during the protective separation, the child learns the skills to be in relationship with both parents and to resist the pathogenic parenting or the pathology of the pathogenic parent. We reintegrate the child with both parents as always being the goal. We want to share with you that it's never the goal to eliminate, it's always the goal to integrate. So it's not about elimination, it's about integration, reintegration with both parents. The child loves both parents. And I want to share this high-level framework with you of the Highroad and why it works. And these next few slides were adapted by the presentation Dr. Childress and I did at the AFCC conference in 2017. It's hard for me to believe that it was in 2017. All these years later, we've presented this in a professional capacity, and the professional community is still really vastly asleep at the wheel. And they've done everything they can to try to put me out of business, try to badmouth me. They ignore me and Dr. Childress, trying to pretend that we don't exist. Yet here we are. And this is a professional level description of the Highroad protocol. And I just want to explain how the Highroad protocol achieves its success in restoring the normal range functioning of the child's attachment bonding motivation with the parent. So this is a catalytic psychoeducational intervention. It involves a sequence of structured activities that restore the normal range functioning of the child's attachment system. And when we look at this slide, you've probably seen this. This is a therapeutic model, requires a protective separation, and it takes about 6 to 9 months or longer to resolve the pathology and recover the child. This is the Highroad also uses a protective separation. However, we recover the child in a matter of days, and the temporary protective separation or no contact can be much shorter. So we use the relationship rating scales I showed you earlier and to determine the child's readiness to reintegrate with the pathogenic parent. Usually the protective separation is 90 days. However, in some cases, it's longer, and in very few cases, it can be shorter. It just really depends on the participation of the pathogenic parent and when the child is reintroduced to the parent's parenting practices and the child is monitored to see how the parenting practices impacts the child. This usually, it's only possible for older children whose brain is developed enough to understand the skills and to resist the pathology. So this is a normal going attachment system, all lit up with love and bonding, affection, empathy, and compassion. And when a child arrives at the Highroad, the attachment system is not lit up, it's dormant in the background. And so most of the kids are so angry when they arrive. Anger is just a misappropriated grief response, and the child is grieving the loss of their parent that's still alive. And oftentimes the child's angry because nobody on the treatment team, in the court, the judges, lawyers, and mental health providers know how to fix the problem, and they fall deeper and deeper and deeper into the family pathology. So in the orientation, I inform the parents and the child what's going to happen in the workshop, what they can expect. After the orientation, we start to watch a short narrative film on empathy. So we start to activate the empathy center. Once the empathy center is glowing, we move to the next interactive activity, which I then do an active activity on compassion while the empathy center is glowing. Now we have the child who still shows anger and grief. However, they are moving to the background, and the child's empathy and compassion centers are now glowing in the forefront. We do an interactive activity, and I start to gain the cooperation of the child, and we launch into another short film about judgment, prejudice, hating a certain group of people, maybe people that they used to love. So we start watching other films about what's going on. After the morning, the anger is either gone or extremely dissipated. And then we move into more media and activities that enact the child's cooperation and interaction, and sometimes mild interaction. And now the affection center is starting to glow. As the attachment system is glowing, we review material and additional few short videos about the brain and how the brain works and some fun activities. We do fun things that keep the child engaged, and we have different things that are age appropriate for different children. The average age of the child that attends the workshop is 12 to 14. We've had children as young as 5 and children as old as young adults. The children that are on the younger end of the spectrum are often siblings to either tweens or teens that have been emotionally cut off. So that's usually the range, but the average age is between 12 and 14 that get court-ordered into the program. Grief is gone, and the child is interacting and engaging in the workshop. By the end of the workshop, the child's attachment system is glowing in empathy, compassion, and affectional emotions are usually the last to glow. The Highroad, again, is a jump start to the long-term care and a reset for the family. Maintenance care with a family systems therapist is required to get the family back on track and functioning in a normal range, healthy, functioning family post-divorce. So this is just the beginning. It is not a magic pill. It is a reset, and the trained family systems therapist works with the entire family post-workshop, reinforcing the skills learned in the workshop and teaching the skills to the pathogenic parent at first separately. And once the skills are mastered, then the reintroduction of the pathogenic parent happens in a controlled and monitored environment with the family systems therapist working with the entire family system. The Highroad protocol represents the specific components, videos, and structured workshop activities and sequences are used to really create a catalytic intervention that's applied. So both the component content and the sequence in which the supporting underlying brain systems are restored are critical to the successful application of the catalytic interventions. So I want to thank Dr. Childress for creating those beautiful slides back in 2017. Again, they're still relevant today. And the restoration of a normal range functioning family and the brain systems allow for the resumption of normal range functioning in the attachment system and normal range attachment bonding with the parent and the child. We've established the authority of the court. We then reestablish the family hierarchy. We explain the basic rules of engagement and build trust. I explain to the child who usually shows up in protest that the old family paradigm is over. The new family paradigm starts today. And the child will sometimes demonstrate an emotional discharge, relief. The child typically engages in 5 to 45 minutes of protest behavior and challenges, to authority. Testing the authority. Are you capable and competent? Can I trust you? Will you respect me? The child's protest behavior represents an emotional discharge in response to the stress relief from being taken out of the middle of the spousal conflict. And by responding respectfully and with calm, confident authority, the facilitators can communicate respect to the child's experience. And by responding respectfully and calmly and confidently, we can begin to develop trust. The parenting skills we teach parents, like I've already discussed, the facilitator demonstrate in the workshop. We answer questions in a calm, cool, collected manner, and we allow the child to have an emotional discharge of stress and relieve them of being stuck in the middle. We begin various activities of empathy. There's no demand to interact with the targeted parent at first, and we address the child's anxiety about the workshop by demonstrating respect for the child's emotional exhaustion and triangulation. And we build trust by demonstrating complex, authentic empathy for the child. The Highroad is 8 easy steps. Remove the mindset obstacles, re-educate parents through co-parenting skill building, recover the authentic child, reestablish the attachment bond, restore normal range family interactions, reintegrate in the new family paradigm, rejoice and reward a family celebration, and post-workshop handoff to maintenance care. We are operating in the background with maintenance care to make sure that if they need something, we're here for consultation, to answer any questions and to handle any of the difficult challenges that may come up that they are unfamiliar with. So this evidence-based practice, we've recovered hundreds of children and families. We continue to do so today, despite the high level of haters and people trying to spread incorrect information about me, the program, and flat out lying about what needs to happen. Pathogenic parents lie and create drama everywhere. This is Dr. Childress and I presenting this at the APA in 2019. This is a report that Dr. Childress wrote. He brought a 15-year-old adolescent male after the Highroad workshop into his maintenance care, tracked the family, and this child is now aged out and has gone off to college and has a relationship with both parents. Not all families who are experiencing the pathology need a full protective separation. It really does depend on when you catch what's going on, as well as the targeted parent's ability to learn and implement skills to recover their child and prevent the alienating parent's behavior from taking hold of the child. And I will close the framework of the Highroad with helping you understand that without an intervention from mental health, the courts look to you, mental health providers, if you're a mental health provider, for a solution. If you don't provide a solution, the family will stay stuck. Not all roads lead to a high road. Some parents can stabilize their family without the intervention and without a protective separation by and through using the custody resolution method, coaching program, and software for service. Most parents want to talk about the problem. They want to be experts in the problem, and I don't care about being an expert. I want to solve the global epidemic for everyone. There's absolutely no reason that this is continuing like it is, other than people are afraid that if it's solved, they will be out of a job. I would love to be out of a job in this field. I would love to be doing other work I do in the world. However, I can't move on from this because the trauma at the core of the family unit is the cause of all the suffering in the world. Imagine what this world would look like if we actually solved the root cause of evil in the world. The core of trauma is in the family. The custody resolution method, again, is a software for service, and there's no other area in family law where people become more polarized than in cases involving parent-child cutoffs, emotional cutoffs. And the custody resolution method provides a digital timeline where we anchor the timeline in chronological order and the evidence tagged based on the pathology and the family dynamic. Family court can wreak havoc on divorcing families for many, many reasons. Tremendous financial strain and constant litigation stress causes turmoil in the entire family, not just for the parents. So parents cut off from their child often have a difficult time getting the court to see their side of the story. They oftentimes, pathogenic parents file false allegations. From minor to severe, the courts may err on the side of caution, even though there is often evidence to support against those claims. And so we really want to make sure that we are preparing a case with the critical facts so that the judge can see through the pathogenic parent's narrative and resolve the family dynamic or the pathology in the family. So preparing a child psychological abuse case takes time. Parents get stuck in their court case involving an emotional cutoff or psychological abuse. They either use too much or too little evidence. It takes a significant amount of time to prepare these kinds of cases, and parents need more assistance and support with court preparation, and especially with how to best properly prepare the case, like these cases, so it does not come off as a he said, she said accusatory case. So we use this simple and brilliant checklist I talked about earlier, the diagnostic indicator checklist, to tag the data in these cases. I used to use Gardner's 8, but when I discovered Dr. Childress's work and the diagnostic indicator checklist, it made perfect sense that this was already accepted constructs of psychology, and why wouldn't we use what's already been accepted? There's no need for a brand new pathology. So this is an example of a part of a timeline, and we put things in chronological order, and the first data bucket is the child responds to pathogenic parenting. This is the diagnostic indicator checklist. And this is where a case where there was an abrupt shift in the cutoff between a daughter and her father upon separation of the parents. The normal range parent-child communication shifts into unhealthy, concerning communication and behaviors by the child onto that parent. And so a cutoff happened. So you can see that there was some sporadic, and then all of a sudden a full emotional cutoff happened. Dr. Childress talks about the CRM versus the evaluation. And this first bucket, there's the collection and first-person interviews. This is the evaluation. They review data and utilize psychological testing. The interviews impose bias onto the evaluator and expose efforts by the parties to persuade them. And there's no controls are in place, no oversight of the constructs used in interpretation. Conclusions are made by evaluators and are often personal opinions. And many times when they make those come to those conclusions, they're no conclusions. They leave things as the status quo and nothing is resolved. With the custody resolution method, the trained data taggers, they review submitted data and identify indicators. The taggers are third-party people. They're not associated with the case. Data comes from tagging is compiled into categories and frequencies. The data points are equally weighted, controlling for bias, and the data provided to the taggers involves multiple parties in the family, and also from third parties like mental health or medical records, school records, CPS, police reports, things of those natures. So the difference is that one provides a neutral third party perspective and one provides a biased opinion. When we tag the evidence, evidence speaks for itself. And Dr. Childress wrote a really nice review for the custody resolution method in 2021, and it really does. We identify the pathology based on the underlying evidence. Now, the custody resolution method is not a diagnosis. It shows the foundation, the historical data. And this can be used in an evaluation to show the evaluator exactly what's happening. Oftentimes, if you're in an evaluation, you're compiling all of this data, but you don't know what you're looking at, and they don't know what they're looking at, and nothing gets resolved. So sometimes it helps in an evaluation. The custody resolution in a nutshell is it removes mindset obstacles through online coursework and coaching. We re-educate parents through co-parenting and skill building. The parents learn to coexist with their high conflict co-parent. There's a reintegration in the new family paradigm, so we teach those skills in the coaching and online education. Parents and their attorney limit their workload for court prep so they can focus on skill building for the parent, being prepared for reunification, and the law for the lawyer. And parents can be prepared for any court case, whether expected or not. And parents can have a much better chance at getting the proper remedy that they seek in court. And oftentimes parents use it outside of court in mediation so that they don't actually have to go to court. The timelines and the data output. So we write a narrative based on the data. So the timelines are just part of it. And then we give you a narrative for the lawyer to use for writing your legal strategy and data output. What does it mean? And then what do you do about it? So one of the most important things about collecting the data, tagging the data, and writing the narrative is now what do you do? How do you solve the problem sooner rather than later? So it's just another way to solve the problem in your family. Professionals work as a solution-focused team. The custody resolution method is used for families who are in court system and professional community is stuck. They don't understand what is going on or what to do about it. And we follow the solution team model and use the data sets and tagging to help the professionals understand what is happening in the family and what to do about it. In the process, we wrap our team around the chosen parent, empowering them with the ninja parenting skills through higher purpose parenting and our online co-parenting courses. We also match the client to a coach that will guide them through a coaching process to deepen the skills they're learning and how to implement in their specific family situation. So we educate parents and empower them with the skills. And we make sure that the chosen parent is supported properly. And the whole family problem requires a whole family solution. Nobody gets left behind. And we tag and analyze the relevant data. And we bring to light what the evidence is conveying in an easy to understand, simple to follow process. And if you're only seeing the child and the child is displaying the symptoms on the diagnostic checklist, I highly recommend at the very least you buy the book Foundations and learn about how to assess and diagnose these families. Professionals empower parents to solve the problem. As frustrating as they are, pathogenic parents tend to have predictable patterns of behavior, which you can recognize once you learn what they are. This means that you can learn effective ways of dealing with them in and out of the courtroom. When you recognize their patterns of behavior, it becomes easy and second nature. One important point is to never tell the parent you think he or she is pathogenic. It will make your life much worse if you do so, so just keep it to yourself and adjust your strategies for dealing with the person. You can deal with them. Once you recognize or even just suspect that you're dealing with a pathogenic parent, it's generally effective at calming their behavior and focusing them on problem solving. You want to make sure that you're demonstrating empathy and respect. The first skill is an attempt to calm that parent by being respectful and empathetic to their situation. You want to help them look for alternative solutions. So you don't want to get them in a space of where they're blaming and attacking, because when they get there, then the other parent will attack back. So instead, it helps to respond with statements of empathy and attention. I can see how important this is to you. Don't worry. I will pay attention to your concerns. I understand. So this can be very difficult to do at first, but this type of statement calms down a pathogenic parent generally right away and help them find those alternative solutions. You want to teach them to respond versus react and set healthy boundaries and limit the behaviors Do this again in a respectful way and avoid using an accusatory you statement. So practice I messages yourself. And you want to set healthy boundaries by limiting the behavior, and do this again and again and again. And it isn't complicated, but it's often the opposite of what you feel like doing when you're faced with pathogenic parents. So practice, 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 practice. And what's amazing is that pathogenic parents and the way they handle problems is similar around the world, and it generally works with all types of people, even if they're not pathogenic. So I want to just go through quickly on what it looks like to be a treatment-focused team. I took a class from Dr. Childress in the summer of 2014, and after class we discussed me being a coach and how I worked with the legal system, and he sent over a document that showed this coaching model, and I said, yeah, that's it. This is what we use, and he created this graphic, and we use the solution-focused team. And the proposed treatment team is composed of 4 separate but very interrelated components. And the first is the coach consultant. That's the person in the middle. Now, we split this role when we do the custody resolution method. I act as the consultant, and the coach supports the parent. So the coach works with the parent in the custody resolution method separate from me. And the coach consultant can serve as an interface with the parent and the treatment team. And this will have access to a network of professionals to refer, hopefully, to in your area. And each professional works independently with the parent and can also work collaboratively with the coach and consultant as needed. And the coach or consultant works with the parent to coordinate the overall integration of the treatment team with the needs of the parent. And this can also be an attorney. And then Dr. Childress talks about a amicus or a collaborative attorney. And the attorney is an expert in understanding this model of child psychological abuse and how to present this in court, and the coordinated treatment team needs for the family. So the attorney takes proactive approach by securing a family treatment needs, right? The family therapist or a psychological consultant. And the psychological consultant can conduct independent treatment needs assessments. They can provide expert testimony as needed, as long as they understand the child psychological abuse or the attachment model, right? They understand the diagnostic indicator checklist and the assessment and diagnostic model and the proper treatment needs recommendations. They can provide independent professional reviews of outside mental health evaluations and treatment reports. So with appropriate training, the role of conducting this treatment needs assessment could become a second professional role served by all child custody evaluators. Dr. Childress probably has talked about this already in his presentation, and I know he's talked about this in other videos he's presented online. And then the fourth is the family therapist. Now, ultimately, we're using this model now. The treating mental health provider, the family systems therapist, could also and should also be assessing and diagnosing, because what are you treating? If you don't know what you're treating, then you're just sitting with the family. So this therapist provides the treatment for the model involving the resolution of the induced distortions of the child's attachment bonding motivation. So they are competent in attachment theory, personality disorders, family systems theory relative to the treatment needs of the child and the family. They also, with the coordinated treatment team, can engage the needs of maybe a DBT therapist or a CBT therapist, maybe group therapy, coaching. They work with the treatment team. The important skill or thing to remember here is that everybody on the treatment team works in transparency. So nobody is singled out. This is a family systems problem, a whole family problem that requires a whole family solution. So when there is a psychological abuse, we first protect all abused children all of the time. That is the way it should be. That is what we should be doing. And then we enact the treatment team, right? We enact a model that serves the entire family, even if there's a protective separation. So working together, professionals can teach parents how to keep the child out of the middle, how to allow the child to love both parents, how to work on their own recovery, how to develop new communication skills, how to create new roles as co-parents. And creating solution-focused pilot program is an opportunity that we have worked on, and Dr. Childress talks about this, and we can work on a pilot program if you have a treatment team put together and this is something that you're interested in. You can reach out to us and we can discuss the opportunity of collaboration through a pilot program or solution-focused pilot program in your area. It's important to understand that there's a cost involved, that there's training involved, that there's a time commitment, not just of financial, but also of time. And you will need at least 1 to 2 therapists or psychologists, an attorney willing to participate. And then we have coaches that can facilitate Highroad, and ultimately we will be teaching the framework of that as well. So just remember, the solution starts with education, prevention. If you can't get to that point, or if you've passed that point, then it's assessment and diagnosis that leads to treatment. If it's a child protection issue, then you must report all child abuse all of the time, and we protect all abused children all of the time. So we engage in a whole family problem that requires a whole family solution. So I just want to thank you so much for participating today. Again, I'm Dorcy Pruter, the CEO and founder of the Conscious Co-Parenting Institute. If you'd like to learn more about what we offer here, you may call us on the number on the screen, or you may email us at clientcare@coparentinginstitute.com. Thank you so much. Just remember, you have to have peace in order to create and have peace out. Have an awesome day, everyone.
Malo je bilo čudno jer nismo mogli da vidimo.
It was a little bit strange because we could